Okay. Yeah, I'm a drummer as well. I'm Italian. I live in Berlin right now. And I'm doing this PhD project about, the study of like augmented drums and solo practice, and I'm kind of like interested in understanding how, the practice of solo performances and post instrumental performances change and affect, the identity of the performer. I come from a jazz background, and yeah, and I think in my practice I've always felt, the constraints of like the tradition and all that. So I've, for the last year I've been trying to kind of like break out and expand the horizon a bit. And yeah, and as part of, of my PhD project, I'm also like carrying out interviews with drummers to kind of like understand a bit better, what their practice is in this sense. And yeah, so I got to know your work through actually Inger, Zach, and yeah, and he really talked super highly about you, and so I went to do, my research and and check out all your, like some of your projects in your video, and I was like really yeah, really inspired by what you do, and just reach out because I wanted to have a face to face. So thank you so much. Really, I really appreciate you making time for this. Um, should I just dive in?
Let's try.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you if you could talk a bit about your music background, and just for me to understand where the solo experience started from for you, and also what pushed you to, get into this practice. What were your preferences back then when you started?
Wow. Okay. These questions get harder and harder as one goes along,
I
I
bet.
feel. Um, Also around these questions of identity, it's not so easy to know when it's the water you're swimming in, if this is a construction or if it's just happenstance, or was it decisions, or
Yeah.
the social thing. It's very powerful as well. So this question of the solo practice in particular is what you're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and from your material, I saw that, like in the solo practice, like I felt like I don't know, we could divide your practice into, two, like whether, the improvised and more improvised practice, and kind of like the like solo practices in which you are performing, some compositions written by composers or by others, right?
Right. Yes. So for me, the most consistent thread in my motivation as a musician is the social side, and this was already there when I was studying, for example, timpani in undergrad. That I love to go through the Beethoven symphonies, but what was so fun was I was reading his biography at the same time, trying to run in parallel because I wanted to understand this person who
Mhm.
is making this music. And it's not that I think that that's essential for a piece to be understood, but it's motivating for me to understand that it's people and social environments and society that creates this music. And yeah, so when I transferred him, or like became more and more interested in experimental music, has been the same, that I'm more interested in the collaborator. In the case of working with composers, I'm more interested in them and our dialogue, our process, than I am actually the piece. But it's weird to say because most of the pieces are very experimental. So there's obviously aesthetic reasons for why it's this person versus that person. Um, but love is a very big part of the motivation, and why some collaborations continue more than once. I mean, I care about everybody, but there's something like this extra connection, and that makes me willing to take a lot of risks on artistically. But when it comes to the solo improvisation practice or making pieces, this is quite an interesting mix of, in a way, I see the performer as having a very privileged position in that we are this palimpsest, or we're this kind of sponge of all of the pieces and people and works and all of that we've experienced. And so when I'm in the solo practice, it's like I have all these people with me and all these pieces. And sometimes it's concrete, like, oh, that instrument or that material is actually from that project. And sometimes it's a more kind of spiritual space. So for me, the solo practice is very collective.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm making my own things, but I can see that I'm usually motivated by the physical condition of the instrument and the performer in a physical dynamic, a dance kind of dynamic. This motivates a lot of my materials, but that's a very kind of separate thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Is an answer.
Yeah, I know it is. And could you tell me something about your background? Like what,
Oh my God.
I assume you come from classical music, right?
Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm classically trained. Grew up in the US and studied in this Western classical tradition time. But I mean, I came from marching band in the south of the US, so there's also this element too culturally. But where I studied in my undergrad was at the Oberlin Conservatory of Music, and my teacher at the time, Mike Rosen, who's since retired, really valued contemporary music and the work of the composer, the living composer. So this value system really came from him. I didn't go to Oberlin because I was interested in new music. I learned to become interested in it through him and that school. And yeah, just for different reasons, I think for percussionists, it's obvious why many of us want to go into an experimental side. If the other option is orchestra in terms of classical music, it's obvious why this choice is made. So I'm not sure it was that profound at the time. Yeah. I was just kind of interested. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting. And for you, has the solo experience been connected to one of the instrumental augmentation and or extended techniques preparation? And if so, what were the experiences that mostly had an impact on you in the sense of experimenting with post-instrumental practices or drums augmentations?
I have many interests, so and I have to follow all of them. So I don't know if it's so clear always but I feel like I've had phases. So 10 years ago, I had a very important, or I still have an important relationship, but it was especially important 10 years ago with the composer Francois Saran, who makes experimental music theater. And he has a piece called Homework that I played. And at that time, I was really interested in the extended percussion practice that is beyond, so-called beyond the instrument, involving body, voice, gesture, space, the room. And he was somebody who really generously took me under his wing. And so I had many conversations about choreography and theater and philosophy, and then ended up deciding to make a work together in 2015 called No Say, No Way, which is a evening length solo. And the reason that was important was that was the process, that we made it in the room as if it was a dance or improvised music, and we use improvisation as a method. And this was a big break in my there was a point where I didn't want to get PDFs of scores anymore from X composer, and we didn't talk about it and whatever. So collaboration became really important. And it's not that every piece I've made since has been like that, where it's made in the room. But what has happened, because most of the pieces are like that, is that very surprising things have come up, right? Because the composer and the performer are inventing together. And that's been really interesting to witness. And it's like small things and also big things. And it's not to say that innovation, if I don't know if I agree with that word, but for lack of a better word, wouldn't happen with work separated. It's
Yeah.
just obvious work together. Like, oh, what happened there? Wow, I've been playing this instrument almost my whole life. I never went there before. Or yeah, you think that's your idea, but I was just improvising and I found this thing. Should we put, it's pretty exciting for
Yeah.
me when it's like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
but the question about the augmented percussion thing, I don't really know how to answer it because it's been, like I said, like the water I'm swimming in.
yeah, no, definitely. Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, whatever comes to mind
An
is
example. I have an example though of it.
okay.
Is just I premiered in July by Kari Watson. It's a augmented drum set piece. It's like explicitly augmented drum set. And that was an interesting case because I'm not a drum set player in the sense that I never studied this. I never had a band. I never played in jazz band that I can remember. And so we had a conversation where for me it was important that the drum set kind of transformed or was augmented so that I could move past that convention.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sort of, this is a kind of rare, I think, concrete example of I needed the augmentation in order to get over my own hang up to then go into a role
Yeah.
that I wasn't totally comfortable with. So then it's like, clip mics on the cymbals and going through mini guitar amps that distort everything. And then there's a trigger pad that also going to guitar amps. Everything is like a big noise feeling, but the material itself is, hi-hat and tom-toms. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing unconventional there. And that was a very interesting process of augmentation, actually, in terms of identity of an instrument and my identity as a percussionist, navigating together through augmentation, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, interesting. And so like in your practice, although everything like looks and sounds great, I'm particularly interested in knowing more about your improvised solo performances. Let's say whenever you're not playing other people's music. So in those in specific, what do you think is the role of composition, whether programming and improvisation when you're just there with an instrument and have to make something with it?
The question is, what is the role of composition? Let's say the
Yeah,
improvisation.
yeah, composition, programming. If you use any DAWs or improvisation, like how much you structure your performances, or
No, I'm an analog person.
Yeah,
There are
cool.
no dots.
Yeah.
I liked very much to have a very clear relation between physical action and sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. It's always so far. And what's interesting is that now more and more the instruments, like the way the instrument creates a physical result.
Mhm.
So always before, percussionists are always interested in how a physical action creates a sound. Maybe all musicians, but especially percussionists. But lately I've been interested in the opposite, how this work actually becomes the physical material. And for example, like setting up an instrument that's like a one-man band, but in such a way that it creates a body for how I have to relate to it. And in terms of composition, it's extremely important to me. And every time I'm starting again with a new solo set, it's like a huge battle to understand the relationship between materials and time. I mean, it's a very, of course, banal what I'm saying right now, but it's a huge struggle. And I think because of all the pieces that I've played, there are some logics of what good form is for me that is absolutely socialized by the fact that I play so much composed music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For me, it's crucial. The question of form is so interesting.
And so, like, would you like prepare yourself like a set list or a set of tools that that you can, go to like during the performance, or do you have like more like a blank slate and you just go for whatever the instrument calls, or the audience or the room? I don't know.
I think for the difference between an improvising, let's say, pianist and an improvising percussionist is that the pianist probably knows there's going to be a piano or keyboard or some kind there. But for the percussionist, we don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe between a drum set player and a percussionist. Not every drum set player uses the drum set in the same way, but there is some kind of given. There will be maybe a kick drum, maybe a cymbal, maybe a tom tom. I don't know. But for the new music percussionist, it could be the table that my laptop is sitting on, and that's it. Or it could be 1,000 instruments. And this is what every composer struggles with when they come into our studios. Like, oh my God,
So much.
I
Yeah.
have analysis paralysis. What should I use? So I feel like building the setup is such a compositional process, and so many decisions have been, so many choices have been made, and also because our objects are relatively simple. So it is this kind of narrowing and opening process I find with the instrument building.
Yeah.
So that when I've gone on stage, I know basically what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, new stuff always happens because of the room I talk about, and that's why it's worth going on stage. I think that's where there's like new discovery, or one of the reasons why it's worth going on stage. And I think like I just had a new solo set last month, and then I knew that I had like 4 or 5 rooms that I could walk into.
Mm-hmm.
I
Like
didn't know when.
mm-hmm.
I didn't know when I was going to go into that room, which had its laws of nature. But I knew I wanted to have a sense of form. So I knew that if I go into all 4 rooms, something has to happen where they either combine or return, or we're always trying to remember and forget at the same time, which is really complicated in the moment. But what was so cool is that a totally unexpected material that I knew was there under the surface like became the main thing in this, because of the live situation. I didn't even see the potential of it until the people were there. Yeah.
That's cool. And in terms of instrumentation, like how do you pick your setups for your improvised solo performances? Because I saw a
Yeah.
lot of videos in which you work with Gran Casas, but also like other things. So
But yeah, I don't know if much of this latest stuff is even online. Every time is a bit different, but lately I've been interested in having instruments that I can play with a single, that can be complex, but with a single motion. So uh, like a collection of ceramic tiles. I know I can make a gliss just by doing this, while this hand is just doing that as well. This has been a motivator. Also sounds that are because of the movement, like the hang up the last 2 years has been cymbals with the pendulum mic,
oh yeah, yeah.
because so that's this is the movement is doing it. I just tap the cymbal and the music happens. And then there's of course this combination thing, like yeah, I found like this glissando on a weird Orff
Yeah.
xylophone with a whirly tube.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like these sort of sound objects that I think are also kind of difficult to work with because they're so, yeah, sometimes when these really concrete sound objects come in, they're hard to compose with because they're so like bum. But it's interesting to have them. Right. So, and then I also, don't we all like to have something that's like kind of signal in time kind of sounds? So whether that's a kick drum or a bell or I don't know, it could be many, many things. So lately I've had this combination of kind of rolls, rhythms, things that happen with minimal movement but maximum results, and then these kind of signal sounds, and that is coming from an effort-based sound making. This has been my at the moment, but who knows?
Yeah, of course, of course. And so like this more like improvisatory approach allows you basically to get to work on different like instruments or colors, and then kind of like present that, in the performances, like present whatever you're working in the moment and what you're investigating in the moment in terms of sounds and preparations, objects.
Yeah, I think it's like this ongoing work in progress, right? The
Yeah.
solo stuff.
Yeah.
That's where it is now. And I mean, someone like Ingar, who that's a quintessential sound objects person, who's like hone, 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 hone. This thing does that
Yeah.
every time. And so this is but those sound objects become then part of the work in progress. And maybe that's his 10 years or 20 years doing it, right? I don't know where it's going, to be honest, but I
Yeah.
find it really, because I get to think about these musical parameters in a new way, even though I have to say that I think this way when I'm playing other people's work as well, so that it facilitates interpretation and understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. No, beautiful.
Different, right? It's totally different.
Yeah. But it's nice to see how everybody has, their own, their own process and, their own approach also to, solo and improvisation.
But what about you?
What was that?
What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, like also based on all the hints that I'm getting from these interviews, I'm just exploring with different things. I'm also using exciters and I put them over the resonating heads of the drums. But I also program a bit with those. I use both Max and Super Collider. So I have like some more like, I guess like more like compositions, like some more fixed things and some, some environments in which, it can get a bit more exploratory and yeah, really interested about, how, the drums vibrates, resonates, and using cymbals over, like prepared heads but I'm kind of like, yeah, and this project, and the PhD was kind of like meant to, kind of like give an overview of like what everybody has been at the moment, in terms of like, because I feel, there's a lot out there in terms of artistic practice related to augmented drum solo performances, but like the more I don't want to say theoretical because it's not theoretical, but like, like kind of like, or also, for example, for a person who's like, approaching the practice, like having, like some insights of like, what are the procedures to, get to certain sounds, to certain artistic products. I think it's I don't know. It's something that I'm interested in at the moment. Yeah. So I've been still kind of like exploring a bit, the configuration of the drums is that because for now. But I'm also considering of like, starting moving things around. And I've been also exploring a bit, started to explore a bit more like the kind of like installatory yeah, the component kind of like of the practice, like especially like using, feedback that you can just like control, via your computer and relate that to audiovisuals. So that's also something that I was that I was going to ask you, because I saw that, like you have like these performances which are, like kind of like in between, like an installation, sound act, like a performance. And I was curious to know where that experience came from. Like how did you how did you develop that?
When I was 22 or something, my dream was to have a company, like a dance company, but for us, where it was like this multimedia circus and everybody, just like everything is possible. The no more borders, just pure following what the musical or what the artistic work is asking for.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just like something in me that goes there, but I can't really pinpoint if there was a moment
Or it's like some experience, like your collaborations with the actors. I don't know if there was any, or
I mean,
dancers.
I've had of course many projects in this way that confirm this interest,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the reason I go there is so intuitive that I
yeah,
uh,
yeah. No, it was, yeah, it's
yeah.
really beautiful to yeah, to see like this super like bodily aware approach, I guess, that you have like with the instrument. And I guess it's something that you are also interested in with the band Penguins, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's yeah.
So that was what my PhD was on, was about the body. So that's always going to be underneath it, even when I'm not even close to theater or dance, it's the body is still the logic.
Mhm.
And but sometimes I feel that that's like being I risk reducing it because it's also sound, it's also energy. It's not just that the body has these mechanics and therefore this musical situation is coming up. It's complicated to have a body and all of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. But especially, I guess, like coming from classical music, in which, like, you're more perceived as just like a performer of somebody else's music, and or like a meme, kind of like, it's really, beautiful how, to like to witness and to see how you integrated, like that part into your practice, and I guess that was also kind of like a way maybe for like breaking some barriers, some conventions, or.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because the moment you're talking about or using the body as the starting point or as in the foreground, then the room is the next thing.
Yeah. Mm.
The audience is the next thing, proximity to other people. And then suddenly you're, yeah, the multimedia circus is back.
That's cool. Yeah, and so talking, for example, about the room or the context, are the acoustic features of a space, like of the space you perform in, something that you keep into account while performing, and which can condition and direction your performance directly?
Hmm. With the improvised work lately, it's all been amplified and going through speakers
Okay.
because of the nature of the room, like the club room or the bar or where these events happen. So, uh, in a way, yes, in a way, no. It's more like, okay, this I know this is gonna go through speakers,
Hmm.
so maybe that makes me make other choices, like back to the table this laptop is sitting on. If this is a texture table and I attach a contact mic to it, then it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Right? So then now the speaker situation actually opens up something which has been consistent, that there's always some kind of amplification necessary as for the work, for the improvisation to function. But in terms of like playing in a church, like Ingar's practice or something, there's nothing that's been driven by acoustics, where his was really interested in that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, yeah.
But of course, I mean, it's a huge parameter in general.
Yeah,
That
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Thank you. And yeah, and I was wondering if you also could talk a bit about how, was the process for you of adapting your more conventional drumming gestures to whatever hybrid instruments you're playing, and how did you work actually on developing new techniques to play um, different prepared objects, or yeah, different instruments. And
do
was
you
it
have an
more
answer?
like, yeah, no, just understanding if it was more like a discovery process, or yeah, like a thing that you did, by doing, or
But for me, it's I feel like technique is this the technique that's most interesting is the one that's about transferability
mhm.
and transformation, and that I can't think of any concrete technique where I said I discovered, like, if my middle finger is like that and my thumb is like that, this will work. Of course there are cases like that, but again, it feels like an intuitive thing about being able to transfer. Oh, this is like that. Oh, maybe. But the other thing I wanted to say is that all these pieces I play are my teacher, and all the people I work with are my teacher. So many of it is just straight stealing, or having just been taught through.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think.
there are some improvisers, let's say like Etienne Nielsen with this snare drum
Yeah,
singer
yeah,
circling. This is like technique.
yeah. Mhm.
And it's not easy to make the snare drum sing it in this technique. Um, and that's something he's been working on explicitly, and like he's digging down, 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 down into the drum. I feel like I'm much more like, yeah.
Supportive, yeah, yeah. And in this in the sense of like learning new gestures or new technique, has working with composers been helpful for you, like to kind of like open up new possibilities? Or
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Um,
Sorry, so hard to remember these things or
No, no,
hard to
no, no. It's anything that comes up. It's good. Yeah, thank you for doing this. And what do you think is the role of the audience in your improvised solo performances? Is it like that relationship something that you take into account, that it's something meaningful and that can condition the way you play?
Yeah, the audience is always conditioning how I am playing, even no matter what the music is, and solo, right? Because it's so bare and there's so much energy in the room, and I think this. I had another research project called Performing Precarity, where I went very much into how the live situation creates this. Erica Fischer-Lichte talks about this auto poetic feedback loop where things happen because you're being watched, and this is definitely true. And there's a special tension, and which is like we were talking about before, which is why new stuff comes up in performance, and that new stuff could be material I didn't know was as strong or weak as it is, and then it's also maybe a new understanding, like a new understanding period on
Yeah.
a very so in that project, got really blown away by a piece I was playing with a collaborator of mine that it fell apart in the performance.
Okay.
And it was very humiliating. It was at KM28 in Berlin, super humiliating with all of our friends there. And we traveled to show this piece. But we found out something about the work, like the essence of the work, that allowed the work to transform into something more true to it. So I say this, that there's like the good tension that we're all dying for, like a feeling of connection and like hyper listening, and like that risk can be rewarded. And then there's like what it actually fell apart, but it's still interesting. I'm really interested in not enjoying the discomfort, but learning in it.
Yeah, like force yourself in that situation in order to learn how to navigate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's really crucial, but it's not that it's like it's not necessarily participatory work.
Mhm. You
And
mean
yet,
for the audience, you mean
yeah, not necessarily. It's not that I mean it doesn't have to be a participatory work to get this very profound information through that relationship.
and do you think especially through solo, like you can tackle that environment of like profound, like more profound communication with with the audience, whereas is it different if you perform with other people, like the relationship with the audience changes?
Yeah, I think when I'm solo, then it's that's the relationship. But when I'm on stage with other people, there's also that thing which is super complex and rich, and people get nervous or they get really kind of unpredictable, and like it's just so dynamic.
Mhm.
So maybe it's with the solo thing, it's more on the nose, I guess.
Focused or something. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah. I think we have like 2 minutes left
Yeah,
this meeting. Could I just send you another link? I have like two more
yeah,
questions.
yeah, no problem.
Thank you. I'll be like right back. Cool. Hey, yes. Okay. Then, sorry, let me pull up my questions again. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I wanted to also to ask you a a bit of some, more like anthropological questions about yeah, what you think about your practice in this sense, especially like related to gender things. Because I saw that you like throughout the years you've been very active both like about gender themes in in within the music field, both with the Penguins, for example, or the QPRG.
Mm.
So, yeah. I wanted to ask you a few questions about your perspective on gender identity and drumming. So I guess like in the collective imagination, the drummer, but I guess also the percussionist is often stereotyped as like this, cisgender male figure associated with features of strength, virility, speed, and technical virtuosity. So do you think in your experience, is there a relationship between the way you play and your gender identity?
I will have to go with I don't know. Oh, the okay, how to answer this? I think the gender aspect is more psychological for me
Mhm.
than necessarily coming out in the instruments
Okay. Yeah.
sounding.
Yeah.
I don't have any reason to believe that I've even been discriminated against,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that I don't feel uh, like kind of hyper aware about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the way my gender is perceived is also not easy for me to understand.
Yeah.
Um, just also being a queer person. Um, yeah, there are social things that have marked me, right? That I was the only woman percussionist until at my master's in my life. Like I didn't have any other friend who was not a man. So what does that do to a person?
Yeah.
I can tell you what it did to me. It made me assume that women don't or can't play percussion. So actually I developed a kind of internal misogyny
Yeah.
or which I had to then unlearn, which was super beautiful, a
Yeah.
beautiful process. So I mean, it's scary to when I realized that that was what was going on.
Yeah.
Even when I'm thinking about when I was a kid, like 16, you're on the drum line, you go over to meet the other drum line at the football game, you see a girl wearing a drum harness, and I just assumed she can't play
Yeah.
because didn't have any other girls. So, so this I think is it's there's that assumption was not based on anything I was told. It's just the fact of the social, like I didn't see any other women. So that's more what I'm thinking about now. And
Mhm.
now that also that I'm teaching, how do we talk about gender? How do we talk about what curation is? Like
Yeah.
the fact that we're focusing on women percussionists as well and gender. Like what does that do actually to the discourse? I'm sure you're thinking about this as well. So that's where I'm thinking. And I don't think about like, oh, your wrists are thinner than that guy over there, therefore you can't play loud. Like we all know it's easy to play loud on drums. It's
Yeah.
hard to play soft on drums. That's what you learn when you study. Yeah.
But because of this, like all this set of probably like social conventions that, I guess like we grew up with, being girls, I guess. Um, I don't know, for example, for me, something that I noticed in my practice was like, the fact of, like since like you're only like, of course, like there is definitely like a psychological component, but it's exactly that psychological component that I'm interested in, and I wanted to understand if there's like a relationship with that and the music. Like for example, for me, like growing up, as a kid, always being told to, like behave, be quiet, respect the elders or whatever, that kind of like translated into like a fear of playing loud in the instrument. I think, and that's also in my whole life that I spent like years to try to unlearn that and just like be completely open and just like be able to let it go sometimes when it needed to to be that. So yeah, and
Mm.
so like I was curious because like you said before that you had to learn like to unlearn misogyny in your path, personal or artistic, and I was curious to know if some of that, the unlearning misogyny process was also present in your artistic output somehow.
The answer
All right.
Yes, because at a certain point, I realized that my here's a very this doesn't have to do with my playing. It has to do with artistic priorities.
Mhm.
At a crucial point in my career, I was thinking I need to be strategic with about who I work with,
Okay.
and and this is something that many young musicians may face at a certain point. And I hope that I wish I could have talked to myself then and say, the most important thing is that you care about the people you're working with,
Mhm.
not that you have the most strategically famous or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah,
when you're a kid, it's hard, right?
yeah.
So there was a point where I made a choice to commission a work from a male composer versus a woman,
Mm.
because of at that time I saw it as a risk. Even if I love her music, it's strategically risky, whereas I know that it's going to work out with this man. And so in a way I played into the misogynist structures of the new music field, which has changed a lot in the last 10 years, like crazy amounts. And this is in this kind of turning point where I became aware of this thought process that I was having and realized this is completely this is working against everything I believe, actually, for the sake of a career. So then this is the breaking point where then it's like, uh, yeah, I do the opposite.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And so it's like if you're a if you're a um, composer man, you're probably top shelf. If I'm prioritizing
yeah,
this, there's such a need now to correct. Also, maybe it's guilt, but also like it's more interesting to go where I don't know. What I don't know is more interesting than what I know.
yeah. Let
Yeah.
go with the things that you don't know what to expect. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. Um, so you could you say that like in these last 10 years or 12 years, you've
Yeah.
been like in a process of like developing your identity as a drummer in relationship or in resistance to like certain social conventions.
Yeah, in resistance to patriarchy for sure,
Okay.
and heteronormative patriarchy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and um,
I
and
just want to add though, but this is really about curatorial questions. Who do I work with?
Mhm.
Where? How? Then this kind of anthropological or social aspect, that is the political aspect, has come in the last 10 years.
So it doesn't affect the kind of music that you're playing. You think that's something that you would have done anyhow, like
I
get
think aesthetics,
aesthetics. Yeah.
what I'm doing on stage, the sounds I make, the sounds I don't make, um, this is not in my thought process. And I've never been like, I want to make a feminist piece. I want to make a queer piece. I've never had that motivation. It's more like, I want to work with this person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or
So for you, like, because like I see, for example, like a drum set, for example, it has been a drum kit. It has been like that, like for over like 1,000 years, like in the way it's shaped and in the way we conventionally think of what a drum set is. So kind of like I see that also, you know, experimenting with breaking, that convention could also kind of like be related to going beyond, like the norms,
I
yeah,
think you're onto something here, that I'm interested in queerness. I'm interested in queerness
exactly. Yeah.
as a mode of being in the world, and I'm interested in when the kind of making it slant, or to bend it. That's obviously driving. And is that a gender question? Yes, but it's such a it's like a lifestyle, this way of thinking queerness that's not only it's not just queer people who can do this,
No, no, no,
please.
no, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But it definitely comes to me. And when you talk about these blurry practices, pieces that are audiovisual and room and all of that, for me, that is a queer thing, that it's not pure. This
Yeah.
is like just in an intellectual sense.
Yeah.
Sorry. But
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about making queer art.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, no. That's cool. That's totally fine. Yeah, thank you.
That someone can say, oh, this is obviously, yeah, I don't know always what I'm doing.
No, 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 definitely. I just thought that, like especially like for me, for example, coming from, jazz, like straight ahead, for example, it's very something very, like testosteronic, very masculine, and when you walk into a jam session, you know, that thing in the air is clear, And so I think, with my practice, I was like, I was drawn to something different because like I did not see myself, represented in that kind of environment. So yeah, I'm trying to understand if like in different musical environments, because like for sure, like you come from a different experience, a different background, there is something there which which can be connecting the dots, if this makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because I have a project, or I'm a part of a project with the saxophone player Signe Emelut, who comes from jazz,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I have a kind of drum set role, but that was super painful to. And so I had this long process of I had like my percussion set up, but I wouldn't sit down because then I would be a drummer, and then eventually it's like actually it makes more sense if I just sit down, and then suddenly now I just play the drum set that's at the venue,
Okay.
and I don't, and so this trajectory has been so interesting, but it's been like an education
Yeah.
for me, this one project. So I have to say, going into the jazz world, I feel it. I really feel the gender thing,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
just the way the sound person reacts to the instruments that I have there, or
Yeah.
also it's also my own discomfort that I'm not used to that setting and that scene. And like even when it's like, okay, we're gonna sound check the drums. I don't know how to sound check drums.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
No?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And what do
But
you want to say? Just like a
what
four
do you want me to
or
do? Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just boom, boom, boom until you say it's good. I don't know. So that's been and I feel like so I want to insist that it's not necessarily a gender thing. It can also just be my discomfort because of this uh, expertise question.
yeah, yeah,
But still, I definitely feel the gender thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
man, it's a man's world.
It's a
The jazz drummer world.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
It sucks, right? It's just
And
so
yeah,
unnecessary.
and you don't feel that with the like, because also like when I go to see orchestra, or orchestra, like all the percussion is. I've never seen like a female percussionist, in an orchestra. I think no, maybe I did last year. Yeah, at the Scala there was one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so I'm also asking these questions like, why is it that when you look at percussion theater pieces, speaking percussion,
yeah,
why is it so many women? Like
yeah,
there are men interested, but so many women.
yeah.
And I don't know the answer, but there must be something about finding another way, not fitting in, feeling that I don't know that your identity is always this theatrical constructed thing, and therefore it kind of comes naturally into. I don't know. I'm just this is pure speculation, but it's obvious that with drum set and orchestral percussion that there are some signals that can be excluding, and it doesn't have to be like that, but it will only change if we're aware of it as
Yeah.
we're teaching.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Well, that was another thing that I wanted to say, but now it slipped my mind. Anyway, yeah, yeah, cool. Thank you so much for this free flowing.
Pleasure. It was fun.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Do you think there's anything else that it's important for me to know about, everything that I mean, of course, we didn't cover everything because like
There's a ton,
there's
right?
so much, but yeah.
It's all so hard to talk about, or it's hard to articulate.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. I just would say that it's important that we're aware at about how much has changed in the last 10 years, and that the change is real, at least in how I see it. I can see it in the programming of which composers are programmed, which improvisers are programmed, and like the whole queer percussion research group happens in a coffee shop in Oslo, where we were like, where are the queer percussionists? Like, it can't just be you and me, Bill, Bill Solomon. And then now it's like everybody's queer, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and not everybody, but it's so many people, and so that's such a sign of the progress, I think.
yeah, of the openness and yeah, like,
10 years, 10 years. That was 2017, 8 years, 9 years. It's like
yeah,
remarkable. So I'm really hopeful.
yeah, and I think especially in the creative music field or improvised music, um, there's so many like women or non-binary,
Yeah.
um, individuals who are playing the drums and playing solo as well. So
Hmm.
I think there's like really like there's something there which I'm trying to find out, but definitely like I feel it's like a way more welcoming and inclusive and freeing environment that that anyone really can inhabit, and maybe that's why it's so appealing also for gender minorities, ethnic minorities, and
Yeah, right.
underrepresented groups in general. So yeah, that's what I've been thinking about at the at the moment.
It's the non-normativity of it that makes it possible for
Yeah,
the the one who's not the cis man.
yeah.
Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. It's just
No, no, but it's just cool to talk about it and to to get where everybody's at in the process of just like yeah, getting more and more aware about these topics, and yeah.
yeah, keep going. Thank you for your work.
No, thank you so much for your time and for doing this, and yeah, I hope I'll get to meet you in person one day. I
Yeah,
might
we'll see you in Berlin. I'll see you in Berlin, Matt's Music if you're there.
what
I'll come to Matt's Music if you're there.
when
28th of March. Will you be there?
I'm not sure. I might be on tour in March, but I'm coming to Oslo probably for there is like a research thing in
EPARM.
April. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Mm.
You'll be there. Okay, that's
Not,
cool.
I'm not presenting, but I have two. I'm supervising two percussionists, and they are presenting, and I'm in there. I don't
Board.
know.
Uh,
Yeah, no, there was some format where the supervisor and the PhD person could be on stage together. So
like
I'm
to
doing
discuss together.
that.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw that. Okay, cool. Yeah,
We'll see you there.
um,
We'll see you there.
yeah. Hopefully, we'll see you there. Okay, cool.
But wait. What are your dates? When do you leave? Because I think the school. I was just thinking it would be cool if you could talk to the students, but I think it won't work out.
I mean, I was also in contact with Anne Marte, who gave me some contacts of like some like the head of like the research program in at the Norwegian Academy of Music, because I'd love to just like come for like I now I'm here in Berlin as an exchange, for my PhD, but I'd love to come like maybe for a couple of months to follow some lessons and see
Yeah.
where you guys are at in terms of artistic research, because I feel it's like a much open and also like practice based really approach than what we're doing in my conservatory, like here in Italy. So yeah, so I reached out to some people. Maybe I'll make it happen to just like come up for like a couple of months to to
Yeah,
play.
nice. Nice. Then we could, yeah, then let me know and we'll set up something for the
I love that.
people to hear about.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Have a great day. Yeah, thank you. Talk soon. Ciao. Thank you so much.